Hello, everyone. My name is Donna Freeman. This is the Yoga in My School podcast. Welcome, welcome. It's a delight to have you here. This is where we explore all things movement and mindfulness for youth, for kids, for preschoolers, for toddlers, all those kind of things. And today we're going to be focusing more on kind of this preschool emergent reader age group, developmental group, because we're going to be looking at phonics, play, and kids yoga. And I can't wait to share my guest with you and all of the fun with reading, literacy, developing those skills, and doing it in a fun and playful way. But before we dive in, I just want to mention that currently on my website, I'm selling the Trauma-Informed Yoga and Mindfulness online course for 50% off. And this is in honor of the National Day for Reconciliation, for Truth and Reconciliation, which was just celebrated on September 30th here in Canada. And the trauma course goes really hand in hand with residential schools and all that happens there, and then in our own personal experiences dealing with trauma, and then how to teach in a trauma-informed way. And some people are like, oh, but I teach kids. I'm like, yes, kids have trauma. So I am a big advocate for trauma-informed yoga teaching and how important it is with all ages and all populations. And that we as teachers need to be really respectful and sensitive to the needs of our students as they are arriving in the class, because we do not know their backgrounds. That we can approach things in a trauma-sensitive way. So if you're interested in that, definitely go to my website, yogainmyschool.com, click on the teacher training, find the trauma course, and get it for 50% off. And that's just for a limited time through October. All right. So now into our topic of the day. We have our guest, Hilary Grierson, and she's from North London, the founder of BearFoot Yogis, and she has developed a really interesting product that caught my eye on social media. You guys are like, oh, Donna's getting lots of her inspiration from social media. And yes, I think many of us do get lots of inspiration from social media and things that come across our desk and across our feeds. And I found Hilary's cards, and I was intrigued because there are not a lot of phonics cards in kids yoga. And as a teacher myself, and someone who has long taught literacy skills through yoga, I know many, I'm sure that many of my listeners have attended workshops with me about yoga for literacy and reading and using books in kids yoga class and all those kind of things. But this is a very, very specific phonics. And some people might not exactly know what phonics are or how to combine kids yoga and phonics and those things. And so we brought Hilary here. Hello, Hilary. How are you?
Hi, lovely to meet you, and thank you so much for finding me on social media, because it's quite a hard route to take, and yeah, thank you for including me today. It's very kind.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
And so just so you know, I'm in Canada, Hilary is in London. We are definitely dealing with the time zones. It's early morning my time, it's middle of the afternoon her time. And we're so pleased that you either are watching or listening on your time and find value in this. And if, as you find value in this, I encourage you to share, to like, to comment, all those kind of things. It really makes a huge difference and gets the word out about the work that is happening in the kids yoga community. All right, Hilary, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to teach kids yoga and why phonics?
Okay, yeah. So I'm trained to be a primary school teacher. So I taught for quite a few years, and then I ended up taking some time out when I had my children. And that's when I actually discovered yoga. I discovered that I needed something for me. I needed something beyond running, because I'm a runner. And yoga came into my life, and then I actually found that my children, well, one of my children, I won't say children, my youngest, was quite keen to come on a mat with me. So me and my husband discussed going on a family yoga retreat in Spain, which was really interesting, something we had not done before. And while I was there, there was this lovely lady called Emma from a company called Super Kala, who was a yoga teacher, children's yoga teacher. And I was watching her with my children and how gentle she was and how she was really encouraging children to join her, including my eldest, who had never shown any interest at all. And it just took me by surprise, because I suddenly thought, wow, this is a way of reaching children in a completely different way. I've always been keen on creativity and being physical in class, making sure that children learn, help their cognitive development through physical learning. So Emma, I spoke to her and she encouraged me and said, you should go, you should do this. And so I came back to London and thought about it, and I spent more time with my youngest and my eldest at this point, doing a little bit more yoga. And I thought I really need to learn how to share it properly. And I had been doing it through cards, and I looked at books and, you know, just doing my yoga poses. And so I started my training just pre-pandemic, with a lovely lady, another lovely lady, all these lovely ladies meeting, called Ayala Hamasani. And I did empowering children through creativity, through yoga and creativity. And so I did my training, and here I am, like being able to share yoga with children and loving the fact that my sons, still my youngest, more involved, but definitely my oldest now kind of comes in when he wants to, especially when the yoga's more energized, rather than it just being about the meditative qualities that yoga brings. And I can bring in all my skills of being a primary school teacher, which is just brilliant as well. So
fantastic. I know there are many who are listening who have followed probably a similar route, who have taken, gone a professional route and then discovered yoga and kids yoga and said, oh my goodness, these things go together so well.
yeah,
Now I can combine two things that I love, and especially being inspired by our own children. I know my kids, if you go and search through my book and my videos, they star heavily in those. And so it's always wonderful to be able to share those things with those that mean the most to you. And that's really cool. I love that you have been able to do that. So tell us a little bit about phonics, because some of our listeners might not be exactly sure what are phonics and why is learning phonics important?
Okay, so phonics is, so we have the alphabet, which everyone I think is familiar with when they have children and they learn ABC, but phonics is about the method of teaching children through sounds and to be able to read and connecting a sound with the letters. So we all know A, B, C, D, E, and then when children go to school, they start learning about the actual sound that corresponds. So A becomes A, B becomes B, and C becomes K. And then it's beyond the 26 letters, because when we look at phonics, there are lots of different sounds. Like there's digraphs, which are where two letters are together. You get the E sound, which is an E and an E together, or an O sound, which is O and A. So within words, phonics is really important to help children decode. So they learn to segment words. So the simplest being cat, and they blend it together and make cat, it, ship. And so phonics enables children, rather than learning through sight, which some children still do, and there are still tricky words out there and words that they're not able to decode so easy. So we call them tricky words or high frequency words that children then access reading a lot easier, especially when they start studying in the UK. Phonics can be taught at nurseries, and it will then be taught religiously in schools when they start in what we call reception. So that's age 5 and 6-year-olds. And I mean, you know, children find phonics challenging in itself as well, because, you know, it's like, I always liken it to the fact that I used to live in Japan and I tried to learn Japanese, and I'm looking at menus and I'm just like, I have no idea what this is. If there's not a picture, I don't know. And so I started to try and learn how to read a bit. And it's like, okay, this is a whole new system to me. And so for children, it's like that. And phonics, you know, they need to find ways to access these sounds. And in the UK, there are lots of different schemes used within schools. There's something called Jolly Phonics, which is where children like use movement. And so if they're doing, they make a snake, or if they're doing like ants on their arms. So, you know, there are lots of people out there trying to devise ways to make it much easier for children to access in schools. So hopefully that explains phonics a little bit better. It's beyond the alphabet. So, and it's, you know, making sure that that children learn sounds rather than the actual letter names.
Yes,
in the
because
simplest
English
form.
doesn't make sense if you just like see a word like something like chaos,
Yeah,
chaos. Why is that pronounced
no,
chaos? Like,
I know.
right? And so things like that, and of course that's an exceptional word. That's one of those weird ones that you just have to memorize.
There
But
are
there,
lots of those though. There are lots.
right? But to be able to teach, especially when we add those vowels together,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the exceptions, like ch can make 3 different sounds in
Mm-hmm.
English. These are important things to know so that it's not always a ch sound or a sh sound. Like there's sounds that it makes, and
Yeah.
you can try out different ones until you start to become familiar with it. And it helps children really to be able to, like as you say, decode the written word and become fluent readers as
Mm-hmm.
when we learn our phonics. Okay, so now, what are some of the challenges then in teaching this to kids? Like you're saying, people are trying to make it fun and engaging. It's like you're a primary school teacher. What are some of the hurdles or the kids that struggle with reading? How can phonics help them to become better?
Yeah, I mean, children come from all different backgrounds. So there are challenges always when they start school because some children haven't had exposure to books growing up. I mean, I even from very educated parents, I remember when I had my babies and they're like, well, when do we start reading with children? And it's like, well, we should start reading now because that's how we give them language. And if they have language, they're articulate, and then, the reading then kind of comes next. So I guess it's, one of the challenges that children don't necessarily have as much exposure to the written word as other children. So that can be one challenge to people. They come to school or come to nursery and it's the first time they might have accessed books. Then other children might have hearing problems, which then again means that they can't hear the sound as well as you and I, for example, or the children that have got very good hearing. So again, that can have an impact on children learning phonics and learning to read, learning to write. I'm trying to think of some other challenges that you have. I mean, some children find it difficult to even sit still. When we get to school, you're a teacher, you know this, it's like, I mean, when I started teaching, I was teaching year 6, which is like the 10 and 11-year-olds over here. And so they were all pretty much trained by the time they got to me. So I would have them mostly, not all the time, kind of reaching out my hand. It's like, come and sit down. Okay, they sat down. Right, we're going to do some work. They're going to do some work. And then as my career progressed, I ended up teaching in the lower years. And my first experience, which was a year 1 class, of being with the little ones, and I was asking them to sit down. It's like, why are they not sitting down? Sit down, please just sit down. And then they do sit down after about 10 minutes of herding them to the carpet. And then you're trying to get them to listen to you, and you're trying to say, oh, look, this is a sound, have a look. And they're not looking at you, they're listening, they're watching what else is they want to go to the role play area, they want to do, so there's always distractions for little children. And that's when we're trying to teach them to read. And I think sometimes, there are 2 schools of thought. Maybe we're trying to teach them too young. And then there's the other school of thought. It's like we should try and teach them now when they can absorb everything. And so children can be not necessarily ready to learn. So there's all these different things that can cause barriers for children. And when I learned to read, we didn't have phonics. It was just, you learned by sight. You just kept reading and pointing at words, and maybe mummy or daddy would read the third word and then you'd repeat after it. So it's a lot like that. And I guess phonics is quite similar because we're showing them sounds and we're asking them to repeat them. So so this is where I started to think, a little bit out the box, think how can we make it accessible to those children that are a bit twitchy or who haven't had exposure to the written word before.
Yeah, and that leads exactly into, okay, why do we want to use kinesthetic learning or movement, like actually moving your body? Because, like you say, little ones are wiggly.
Yeah, they are.
You can leverage that desire to move, and many people who have studied kinesthetic learning know that we remember better when we move. Even I remember being in university lectures and looking around the lecture hall and watching students, and we do it as adults, we just do it in a very subtle way. So there would be people who rock or people who twirl their pen. I can't do it, I can't even, right? Our doodlers.
I doodle. Yeah, I'm a doodler.
Right. And so many of us have found ways to be kinesthetic learners in a very subtle way that's a little bit more socially acceptable because we've been trained, as you say, but the little ones haven't been trained yet. And so how does this kinesthetic learning through play, through physical experiences, can you explain that process a little bit to those who may not be familiar with kinesthetic learning?
Okay, so kinesthetic learning is about doing, it's about actively being involved in your learning. So you're not just sitting passive, being told. So again, when I was at school, we did it was listening, and we would sit there. I don't know how, children have changed in the past, but I think, I don't know, we had a lot more fear back then, but now I think, as teachers, we're a lot more I was nurtured at school, but, I feel like we're giving them a little bit more of empowerment and control of their learning. So kinesthetic learning in itself is just allowing children to learn by doing through play. Play learning is so important right now, allowing them to work things out themselves, the problem solving. So if they're learning by doing it and they make mistakes, learning that mistakes are fine. So again, kinesthetic learning and learning through doing and being active in that means that they learn to make mistakes, and that's okay. Mistakes are fine because then we move on. It helps cognitive development because they're being more creative, they're being more expressive, they're developing fine motor skills as well as gross motor skills, because again, if they're not just sitting, they're using their hands, they're using their bodies, and using play at school in the very early years means that's what they're doing. If they're playing with the sand or the Lego and building, and talking about it with their peers without an adult always being present, because obviously there's only so many adults in classrooms across the world, and children are given more independence through this kinesthetic learning as well. Just if they're doing and being active in everything that they come across in the classroom, it makes it better, and cognitively as well, because they're moving around, there's more blood flow and it's to the brain, and it stimulates the senses. And I feel it's very important, and I think that we're very lucky these days because I see a lot of it, follow a lot of people on Instagram, like in early years, just constantly trying to think of activities that stimulate children where they don't have to be passive, where they can be active, they learn through doing, and given a lot of independence in their role as a child rather than just being told what to do.
I love it, because we think we might know what the world will look like in 20 years, but we have no idea. But we do know that they're going to have to be creative, cognitive, be able to problem solve. These are skills, regardless of what the world might look like, that they will need. And that's one of the reasons why I love kinesthetic learning, is it's really teaching those what I think are upper skills that are applicable regardless of how what the future will hold. That we will all have to have these skills.
Yeah.
All right. So now we've talked about phonics, we've talked about kinesthetic learning. Let's get into how does yoga come into those things, and how did you come to this idea of phonics cards?
Okay, yes, now you're asking. So as I've already explained, my background is primary school teacher. I've also had time out to be with my children before they started school. And and then I discovered yoga. So it's all, coming in together. And again, I'm very passionate about play through learning. So it just came about because my eldest child, I had some beautiful alphabet cards, they're enchanted wonder cards, they're called, and my children were putting them out and playing with them and looking at the poses. And then it was my eldest child, who likes to feel that he's in control all the time and he's the one that knows, was started to use the letters with my youngest, and he would say, oh, this is but, and then he was the one that was like, but there's only 26 here. There's 26. These are just the letters. I want to show him the sounds. And he goes, you haven't got. And I was just like, oh, yeah, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, but you can still do these ones. So we can go a, b, k, d, f, and we can go through it. And it just got me thinking. And I just left it there. And then lockdown in the UK happened. We were all at home and I couldn't go out and do my yoga class. We were confined as we were all. And I just started thinking about this idea of the yoga. It just kept coming back to me. And I kept thinking about what he was talking about, saying we didn't have the sounds. And I was thinking, but I could create something here. So I would go up to another room and I'd sketch away. My husband would take the kids for a couple of hours after a bit of homeschooling. He'd be out in the garden and I got out a sketchbook and I was messaging my friends who are all teachers and saying, I've got this idea and I don't know whether it would work. And they were like, yeah, you should try. And in my head, I was thinking, do you know what's the worst that could happen? That I sketch away, which is therapeutic. I create all these these poses and sounds together, and I never see it again. It just collects dust. It doesn't matter because I'm getting something for myself right now. But then as I was doing, I was sending pictures to friends who were in early years, and they were like, oh, good. And then started thinking, you can see it, say it, pose it. And I came up with this kind of strap line. So we're going to see the sound. And I've got some cards here that I might, for example, show you. This is a nice one for today. I've got the N sound and it's nap. And children would lie down in this pose, which is obviously like quiet time, relaxation. And I was thinking that linking them all together might just work. So I kept on designing them. I was looking at all the sounds, I was thinking, and it took a long time. And then I then started drawing them digitally on my iPad and making them a little bit more fun. And I introduced a bear because I've called myself BearFoot Yogis. So I thought I'm going to use a bear character. And then I would screenshot them, send them over to friends, and they were trying them out with their young children. And I was trying them out with my son at home. And people were saying that their children were remembering some of the sounds because of the poses. And the idea is that they, it's very loose. It's not kind of like, here's a sound, you must learn it. It's just kind of like bringing it into a yoga session. So I use these in my yoga, not always just as phonic cards, but I'll just bring in a, I don't know, we've got this one here, and I'll just say, we're going to do angle pose, but I will say it's an angle. And they get into the pose and they say angle. And it's just all something's happening within their brains that they're starting to link a sound with a pose. So instead of just thinking about how the letter looks, they're learning it like auditory first and listening and hearing the sound. And then hopefully as we progress around into the sessions, I'm using a lot of mindful activities where we might trace the sound with a feather or a pom-pom, or we might blow in a straw around a sound. So it's the idea of the yoga and the phonics and mindfulness all kind of link. And yeah, so I then had all these cards on my iPad, and I'm like, what am I going to do with them? So I start investigating like printing. So I just printed a load off, keeping everything crossed that people would then buy them, and they have been. So I mean, they're not, haven't got them in shops or anything. I've just got them at home upstairs in a room, and I hashtag all the time on BearFoot Yogis, showing ideas of how I'm using them within yoga sessions, and hoping that people will think, oh, this is okay, I can do this. So I've had yoga teachers and early years teachers and parents buying the packs and trying them with their children at home to bring that kind of kinesthetic idea of doing something and learning a sound at the same time. So it's kind of bringing all the different learning styles, because obviously some children learn from listening and they learn from verbalizing things, or they learn from just looking at the sound. So it's just, yeah, and it's still a learning process. I'm still learning. The children in my sessions are still learning, and I'm having a lot of fun. And, I was teaching this morning, and I had some children, we were doing the sound, and we were laying out cones and making the sound with cones, and then ending with the sun pose, which is, arms up wide, and they're looking at sound. And by the end of the session, they were saying it and using it, not writing it, because I feel that, they were preschoolers, it's too early for that, but they were becoming aware of the sounds through the yoga activities and sessions.
Love it. I love how you say you're still learning and growing as you implement them. And I think that is such a wonderful example of how we as professionals approach our lives, that every interaction is something where we can learn from the students, is what they're bringing to us. And it's like, well, let me just try this. It's like, let's keep using that innate creativity of and the knowledge that we gain with the students, and then them coming back with us. Now, what I'm wondering, a couple of things I'm wondering, because I'm thinking of the cards. And so I'm wondering, like, you did a angle, and that's a really interesting, because usually it's a apple or a alligator. And I was like, a angle. That's not where
complicated.
That's not where, right? Now, do you ever invite the students to come up with their version or another word that starts with the same sound, and what a pose would look like? Because this is where I'm going with this. It's like, okay, you did an nap, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, neck. Like, there's so, like, can you think of another word, and what would that pose look like?
Yeah. I mean, in the session this morning, I had a bag full, because I was doing the sound. I had I introduced it and say, this is the sound we're looking at, and I put lots of around the sun pose that I've got, and then I've got a sound bag for not every single session, because I try and vary how I'm doing it. But today is an easy one to have a sound bag, and inside the children come up and they take out an item, and then we try and create. So again, yoga is about creativity. It's not just about, especially with children, it's not just about following a flow at this age. It's about being body aware and thinking about how can we create something with the sound. So there's I think we had Spider and Spider-Man this morning. So we thought about Spider-Man, then we also actually just thought, well, Spider-Man's powerful, so how do we show power? It's not just like mimicking the item that they brought out, like a snake and a spider, but Spider-Man, what has he got? What qualities does Spider-Man have? And so it was, ended up being kind of like a very warrior pose, strong, creative, and, they would do things with their hands that, holding, and it was, a really nice activity. And yes, I do that quite a lot. I either use flashcards for them to look at, or I get them to think of other things with the sound, because as you say, it's all about them hearing that sound at this age, before they get to school and learning to write it or read it. It's about listening and hearing it in other words. And a sound bag is one of my favorite activities, because they can pull out so much. We had Star, Spider, Spider-Man. I look around and see what my children have got in their bedroom and then just steal it. Snake. And it's good, we have like the cobra pose, and they come up with something different for Snake. It could be lying on the back, or they want to be standing up and using their arms, and we try and make it dynamic and active. It doesn't have to be something that we stop still. And then after that I try, because as you know, through teaching yoga, you don't necessarily follow a plan as such. You kind of go with the children. And I think, right, well, we're going to put some music on now, and then they run around and we stop the music, and then, right, I'm going to say Spider. What were we going to do for Spider? And some of them might want to choose to do something different. They might not want to do what we chose, and that's fine too. And I think children become empowered with that, because there's no right or wrong. And that's what I love about the idea of my yoga phonics, is that it's open to discussion. It's open for you children to explore and be creative with your own body, and share with me and teach me as well in a session. So yeah, it's lovely to be able to do that.
Yeah, I love that idea of the self-expression and ownership and choice. Like, those are all beautiful things, and all that. I'm like, yes, this is trauma-informed teaching. So thank you for teaching in such a way that is welcoming and warm and safe for children to be able to be who they are in a physical learning environment. Like that's a lot of skill. That's a huge skill set that you've just demonstrated for people who are listening. And I know that
I mean, even with the breath work, I try and incorporate the sound there as well. So again, like when we were exhaling, we're doing some breath work, inhale, and we were saying, let's say the sound as we exhale. And then, we were doing snake arms, because, the child was talking about the arms. And I was like, right, well, when we inhale, exhale, and then bringing them down. And again, saying as we go. And so I also, with relaxation, I was thinking, right, when we're relaxing, we're going to think about the sun. We're going to think about the sun warming us, you know. So it's trying to bring within the sessions the sound in more ways than just the poses. Let's think about how we can bring it into our breathing, into mindfulness, focusing, you know, everything that we can give to our children.
Yeah, and I love that. Like, I was just doing some Qigong the other day, and someone was talking about meridians and how each of the meridians have a sound that when you breathe, you should use these sounds to clear your meridians. And I was just like, and phonics. And, right? And it all comes together in mindfulness practice for kids yoga. When you do these type of things, like adults, you're like, and on the exhale. And I'm like, we do this all the time in kids yoga. And the adults are like, what are we doing?
We should do more of it. Definitely the adults should be doing more of that.
Right? It's like, but I find it so interesting, the interwoven nature of things. You can look at it from a phonics perspective, or you can look at it from a traditional Chinese medicine perspective. And many of the techniques are similar. And so, you know, if anyone listening is interested in that, there's lots of information on, you know, doing the phonics, and there's lots of information on doing the Chinese medicine version of breath with sound, Tibetan meditations and things like that. So really cool, like I said, that interwoven nature of the techniques that we are teaching and using with children. All right, I have another question for you, because I know other people, such as yourself, in lockdown, they came up with really cool ideas. Like the number of podcasts exploded through lockdown, the number of books, people sat and wrote books, and you developed cards. So can you tell us a little bit about this process that you went through of, you know, you talked a little bit about the creating process, because you are obviously an artist, along with your other skills. And then, but then you went, so the creating, publishing, and marketing of some yoga cards, and what people can expect if they're inclined to, you know, follow your example of, hey, I have this idea and I think it might actually work and be useful for people.
Yeah. So for me, with the creation was just, as I said before, was I started sketching them out, and then just finding a way that I could, because I looked at my sketches, and sketches are fine, you look rubbing, but I wanted to be able to obviously do it, you know, on a screen, make it more cartoony. And so I found there was a wonderful app called Procreate, which is where you can draw. So I would take a photo of my drawing, and then I was able to just develop it and make it slightly cleaner and have more colors. And because obviously I knew that with the cards, they had to be vibrant, they had to be something for a child who they wanted to look at it. So Procreate was brilliant at helping me just really clean up my drawings and bring in the words. And then I chose as well to use white on a green background and put sound buttons. We hadn't talked about sound buttons before, but just for people that don't know, sound buttons, I'll just show you here. So we use them underneath to show how many sounds there are. And you normally get a dash when there's a digraph like that. So yeah, so this, again, my handwriting should be neater, but it isn't. So I was able to produce neater handwriting on the Procreate app. And then it was just a case of, at first I was thinking, oh, I need to get these published. But I was thinking, then someone said, you don't need to publish them. You can just get them printed. Like, you don't need somebody like from a book company to say, yes, we'll publish these for you and sell them. So it was all kind of like, right, okay. So I did send them off to a print company, and I just got about, I think I got 10 done initially, just to have a look at them, because there's 69 cards and there's back and front, because I have a little activity on the back of each card as well. And they sent them, and I looked at them, and then I just gave them to friends to kind of look at and evaluate, because I did rather the hard copy rather than what I was screenshotting or sending over. So that really helped, you know, just not going for the big, I'm going to order 1,000 copies and no, I'm going to sell them. I'm going to order 10 and I'm going to see how they go. And then actually it was really good, because there were mistakes, there were issues with them. Like I had put the wrong sound, not the wrong sound, but the wrong sound buttons in a few places, because it, you know, I was being a bit too quick, and there were some mistakes, you know, even with just typos on the back with the activities. And so I had a friend edit them, and she really, really kind. She went through every night after her children were in bed, just make sure that everything was okay, because she does that for a living. And then, then I was like, right, I'm going to go for it and press the button. I'm going to order. So I printed off 100, and I think I've got about 15 left. And I'm hoping, I'm trying to think. I was talking to my husband the other day, like, do I do this again? Do I print off, some more? Because, it's exciting, a buzz. The first time I got someone other than a friend that ordered a set of cards was just like, it was like literally open the champagne moment, because I was just so excited that someone had found me through social media. And the marketing side is much harder. I'm again learning here. I'm constantly looking at social media thinking, how do people do this? How do they sell a product so wide? But I've just got to learn how to get out there. I'm hoping as I become a bit more confident, and as I get more familiar with teaching all the sounds myself, that I approach schools and nurseries and say, look, buy these. Some schools have, don't get me wrong, I've approached some schools and they're like, yeah, let's have some. One school ordered 12 sets, which was remarkable. They were like, had one set and then ordered another 12 for the whole, all the years to use. And it's just, for now it's me. And there's something like this is really, really powerful, like amazing that you found me and wanted to help me share my yoga phonics with other people. But if people have an idea, just go for it. I just had to think, what was the financial risk? And I'm very fortunate that I've got a very supportive family that were just saying, like, worst case, you have got cards to use in your classes. Worst case, the parents buy the cards to support their children at home. So, but as it is, I have sold beyond my friendship group. So, which is, a real triumph for me. So, so go for it. If you have an idea, I think there's always, if you can, just do it.
Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. So where can people find you? Where can they purchase your cards? Because they're really cool cards.
Well, at the moment, they're on my website, which is in my Instagram. So I'm at BearFoot Yogis. So all my information is there. I've got my website, and I haven't been able to create a shop on there, but people can access it through the website. I am in the issue at the moment is because internationally, it's really expensive to send cards. There was a school in America, they ordered some, but it cost £24. I don't know what that is in Canadian dollars, but it was a lot of money just to package up. And so this is, a next step for me, is to finding out how I can share these digitally with people overseas. Because even now, because we're not part of the European Union anymore, we have to, it's £10 anywhere out of the UK. So, which isn't so bad, but like over to Canada, to United States of America, it's a big, big cost on top of the cards itself. So but do take a look and contact me. And, if anyone has any ideas on how I can make this a way of sharing flashcards digitally, then great, that'd be really helpful. But do look me up at BearFoot Yogis for sure. And, we can start there.
You remind me so much of myself. It's amazing. Because when I wrote my book in 2009, I went through the whole process of writing a book and finding a publisher and doing all of this. And then after that, I was like, I'm never doing that again. I'm going to do digital books from now on. That is so hard because of the shipping. The shipping is a huge stumbling block. And so I hope that somebody can get in touch with you and can help you figure out the digital downloads for cards, because it will transform your reach, I know, and surmount that hurdle of shipping, because shipping, I know it cripples me in my kids yoga business, because again, shipping from Canada is ridiculously expensive. And so it's like, oh, I have a great product. I'd like to get it.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, I did the same thing. I created a digital version of my book, and now I can ship it to wherever people take trainings from me, Saudi Arabia, Australia, Japan, and then I can just send them a digital copy. And I'm like, there you go. Instead of like, I once sent a book, somebody wanted it shipped express to United Arab Emirates. It cost me over 100 Canadian dollars to ship that $20 book,
Oh,
right? And I was just like,
crikey.
and that's not reasonable. It's just not reasonable, right? And that was the day I shipped, that was the day that I found out how to do a digital copy. I went and did the research. It was worth the $100 ding too. That was my motivations. I'm never again am I doing this.
Right. I'm going to definitely press the research button tonight when my kids are in bed. I need to just carve out time and really, because obviously there is a way. It's not impossible. Nothing's impossible. It's just discovering how to do it. And I will. So yeah, bear with me.
All right. And if anybody has any help for Hilary to figure out how to do that, this is a really supportive kids yoga community, because she's got a cool product, people, and more people need to get their hands on it and be able to use it with kids and help them to discover the joy and the love of learning and reading. All right.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you so much, Hilary. It's been a delight. And now I did want to tell people it's bear as in the animal, not as in naked.
It's not, we're not, yeah. So it's a play on words, but it's, the BEAR, BearFoot Yogis.
Yeah.
And Instagram, Facebook, and then it's the same for my website. If you Google it, the website does come up. So, but thank you for pointing that out in case everyone's like looking for the other bear.
The other bear, which sounds the same, but it's spelled
yeah,
differently.
and that's where phonics comes into play as well, isn't it? So we've got same sound but different spelling. Good old British language. So yeah.
I love English. All right. It has been a delight spending some time with you, Hilary. Thank you so much, and I wish you all the best in your endeavor of sharing the joy of yoga through and learning through movement and mindfulness.
And thank you very much for having me. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you. So thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening, for watching. If you didn't see the cards, you can see those on the YouTube channel version of this. Just look up Yoga in My School on YouTube. Actually, I think it's Donna K. Freeman on YouTube. I can't remember what my YouTube channel is called. That's really bad. But you can find all of these, many of the podcasts in visual form, or you can go and listen in audio. And thank you for being here. I really appreciate your time. Have a great day.